Hello boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. Courtesy your host Marley Startled. It is right now 5 o'clock in the morning. Unfortunately my diet of a large pepperoni pizza and a large bottle of Coke was not a good idea, and I couldn't get to sleep today, and so that's why the stream isn't on. I'll try and get to bed later on, but while I wait, I will be first trying to do another experiment. This time a cancer build. So a while back I was playing as Spain, like years and years ago before I started streaming. It was still back in the days where if you built refineries you actually got the fuel which you needed to produce tanks with, before they added actual fuel in the game. And it was a meme game, and I thought if I just spam refineries as a neutral Spain, I can break the game for the Allies and give all that rubber over to the Axis. That eventually led me to getting banned on that multiplayer game, even though it wasn't a rule break, simply because I just subverted the entire game's reason to limit German superiority. But it got me thinking, can I continue to do that in a new iteration of Spain? And how disgusting can I get Spain to be the resource bitch for the Axis? So this is going to be heavily edited, just because I don't want you to see me building factories the entire time. But fingers crossed it goes well, and we'll see how it turns out. So I'll be right back. And it's a bit of a Spanish Civil War, boys. So immediately join with the Nationalist Front, and the main plan is, if we select all our boys, the trick with the Spanish Civil War is simple: bum rush. That's your main objective. Bum rush like you've never bum rushed before, and aim to push as much as you can early, while before the sort of the territory settles. And then of course select a handful of boys there, unassign them, and send them over to secure whatever's left of this location. With that done, immediately move the troops over from the south, and begin bum rushing as well. And then once of course everything is settled, then you can worry about everything else. But for now, it's all about the early rush. Get in early, rush it. And the war's finally over. Took some time, we'll be honest. With this strategy, of course, you would have to end the war earlier if you wanted to get the most out of it. However, then again, I don't think you'd have the option in multiplayer games, simply because you would be dependent on when Germany wants to stop farming, so bear that in mind. So now we're going to wait until about June, July time before we start switching to our great and glorious rubber production. And then you'll be able to catch back in with me once that's ready to go. Okay boys, so it's now 1938. As you can see, our production of rubber hasn't popped off yet, so we won't be the rubber bitch for the Axis so far. General focus is going neutral. I don't know if you could join the Axis in some multiplayer games, but in any case, in case you can't, we're just going to go down neutral and then deal with the roquettes, or what do you call it, the naughty boys who keep on screwing up our rubber production, because in fact we are producing more rubber, but because of non-core controller penalties, we aren't getting it out to market. Hopefully by 1940 we'll have a lot more rubber for production, but we shall see. Right now in terms of production queue, things aren't looking too bad, but we're trying to stagger our infrastructure as well so we get other resources, not just rubber. Okay boys, now we are back. It is of course the 10th of July, and now I've got some wonderful things to show you. So firstly, as soon as the Civil War ended, this is the focus tree went down with. So immediately we went down to and selected, where was it? Adopt the 26 points for the extra war economy. and then we rushed down autarky, switching back to free trade as soon as that focus popped, to eventually get rid of the penalty to developing economy. And then once that was done, we moved down to the Tangiers Enclave to hopefully get some civilian factories, and then finally moved down on the left-hand side. At the same time, as soon as we got reduced reliance on foreign resources, we started researching our exploitation of resources each one at a time. So using 3 factories per one at a time. Once we did one decision, we moved on and picked a second one so we could continue our rubber production. In terms of our actual construction, it was a mix between infrastructure and refineries. So one refinery, one infrastructure, wherever there was resources. And of course, we took Portugal as soon as the war started, as per usual multiplayer rule set. As you can see, we now have 88 rubber, of which 70 of it is being traded, 497 tungsten, of which 318 is being left for export, and 141 steel, which of course no one is trading with. We also have some aluminium, but not a lot. And of course our army is garbage. So if we take a look at, say, British Malaya, you can see, of course, in terms of rubber, you were never going to meet that sort of level. We're never going to meet the level of the Allies in terms of their rubber production. Is it still a pretty useful amount to have? It's not bad, I will admit. I mean, what does the Germans produce? The Germans produce 9 rubber. Of course, the multiplayer games will be producing a whole lot more, but still 88 rubber just going to the Allies axis is extremely useful. Of course, the Allies may be able to trade as well for it, but nothing you can fix with just joining the Axis. Well, actually, you can't really fix that. Yeah, if the Allies trade with you, it'll be a bit of a pain, but hopefully the trade influence Axis will fix it if they notice. In terms of research, I could have got better infantry equipment earlier, and I could have got a better truck earlier, researching a run research slot, but it was a general hard rush down to get rubber, fuel, and advanced processing, along with construction and excavation. So really all 3 research slots it were focused on this. Of course I had a 4th research slot, but again that was mostly focused on industry, until I decided to actually, I wanted to see if I could make some valuable units as well to boot. So I had to research infantry equipment quite late. So if I see if I can start sending volunteers, I can send volunteers. So I could potentially, with this build, send some really garbage artillery / motorized to support as well, eventually leading on to mechanized. I could get better sort of divisions like for this. If I had a sort of micro optimized to build a bit better, but hey ho, it is what it is. Alternatively, you could have perhaps researched air instead and like started sending air volunteers with extremely good air, or you could have sent CAS or something like that. We're using your rubber to sort of offset the production costs. But still, pretty interesting, I won't lie. We're going to continue on to see what sort of level we can get to, and then we're also going to demonstrate how much oil we're getting. So currently we're getting a daily gain of 2.3k oil. So if we trade up and pick, say, get oil from the United States, because of course we will be able to, or Venezuela, because we'll be able to, because we'll be a nice neutral nation. Use our 13 factories. Now we're getting a daily gain of 10k oil. So now if we tag Romania, you can see what sort of oil. The Romanians make a daily gain of 2.9k. Tag Germany. Daily gain of 4.1k. And of course, if you wanted to, we could do more trading with other nations, such as Mexico. But we'll trade with Iran instead. Crack up, say, 12 factories, because again, we've got so many factories. Now we've got a whopping 17k fuel that we could land lease. To the to the Germans, which is pretty potent, I will admit, pretty potent. But of course, I probably wouldn't I'd just give them 10k oil. I wouldn't give them that much unless they ask for more. So instead, we'll bring it back down to nothing, so I can keep producing rubber for them, and then we'll give them their 10k oil. And see how much oil that will give them. So that allows us to keep on building our construction up. But I'll be back in a minute. We won't show any war aspect to it, and we'll go to 1942 and see how that plays out. Okay, gentlemen, and I'm back. It's now January 1942, so I thought we'd do another recap, and then we'll do another recap 1943. So at this stage, I've sort of ran out of things to build apart from rubber refineries. I've done my final research into modern rubber, so now I'm making over 130 rubber a day, and of course that means I have ridiculous amounts of rubber. And I've also improved my refinery research, meaning that I've also got a couple more, another K of fuel. So we're going to check now how much fuel we could get if we were to fully use all our civilian factories. So again, with the ability to trade with everyone, we take all the fuel from everyone who would not be a major. And okay, that's all our own civilian industry. So that we can get 21.9k and still be constructing. Now if we take a look at the consumption for Germany, $4.6k. Of course, in multiplayer games it would be excessively higher, excessively much higher. So if we tag Romania, because they'd be spamming so much air out, it'd be ridiculous. And these guys are making a daily gain of 4.2k. So we're producing a lot more than Romania. But bear in mind, the Romania, of course, would have been researching a fuel techs in a multiplayer game as well. So what are the benefits of this build so far? Well, I'll conclude it in a minute. So we'll wait till 1943. You can see there's been not much change at this stage. It's just ballooning. We'll go back down to our typical level, but I can see a great strength in this being that you can't that you are effectively the middleman for the Axis, and unless the Allies declare war on you, which depending on the rule set they may not be able to do, you just end up becoming the rubber fuel bitch, which is quite funny. But we'll wait till 1943 to see what happens next. And finally, well, penultimately, boys and girls, it is now January 1st, 1943. So if a multiplayer game is going longer than January 1943, it's highly unlikely, very unlikely in most cases. But at this stage, we've done very little in terms of focuses, anything else, and all we've done is now we've pretty much ran out of build slots for nationalist Spain. You see, we've pretty much run out of slots to build any more refineries. But in terms of production, we are now producing a whopping 197 rubber. We're going to do a cut after 24 days to see how much rubber we're producing after excavation 4, and then we'll do a little bit of discussion about what we think about this build. You can see we've got some units. We could produce more if we wanted. These guys are okay now. They could be worse, or they could be better. but for what they are, they're pretty good. You could get them out by 1941 if you Barb if you wanted, but I just couldn't be bothered. Yeah, it didn't take very long to research. Of course, they're not going to be any use in Barb against any decent units, but it's not too bad. At the same time, we have now got 15k gain in fuel, so I'm not going to even bother attempting to do all of this because it's pretty clear that I will be the Axis fuel provider for most of the war if I did this build. In terms of rubber, it's getting to the point where even the United States is trading with rubber from us. The only one thing I would say about this is, of course, if the Allies did notice this, they would, of course, potentially mass trade to take your rubber away. But it doesn't really matter because the more they mass trade, the more you build rubber, and eventually, and it's a waste of their civs. And if depending on rule set, you could join the Axis and let's gimp them that way. Again, tungsten is pretty much maxed out, and steel is even maxed out. It's even other nations, even ally nations, are buying that crap, which is pretty amusing. Of course, the more pressure that's put on by the well, if you look at the exports, I export 197, British Malaysia exports 559, Dutch East Indies exports 274. So in terms of actual exports, we're producing about, I wouldn't say 1%, but we're producing a healthy chunk of rubber, enough to maintain a large scale Axis air production, which is really rather impressive. Anyway, we're going to cut to 20 days, and then I'll do some discussions on 24 days about what I think about the build. Okay, it's done. So let's take a look at our resources now. 216 rubber. Okay. 634 tungsten. Yeah. 239 steel. Yeah. And our production of fuel is 15.8k. So if we were to buy all the fuel from, say, Iran, and then I'll go Colombia, Mexico, no, Argentina, Japan, I suppose we'll buy the rest of Mexico. Let's see what fuel production we'd get. A whopping 27.8k fuel production. Now if we tag over to the USA, they have a daily gain of 33.8k. So we're almost producing the same amount of oil per day as the USA. If we tag the Soviets, a daily gain of 10k per day. Now, I don't want to be pretty cheeky, but this is a pretty disgusting setup. Of course, you got to bear in mind it is 1943, and of course most wars won't go on for that long. But as you noticed in the earlier presentations throughout the time period, I was producing the same fuel as the Soviets in Barb. So altogether, you can't complain too much, really, about the state of the build. It's a very interesting one. You effectively forego any fun to be a massive boon for your team, because all I've done is build civs till 30 until I had 15 civs, and then rubber refineries and infrastructure the entire game, with the occasional research of new equipment once I had that extra research slot, and then I just hard rushed down most of the industry tree. So it's it's a particularly boring play style. It's a place. It's like a New Zealand play style. You sit and do nothing, and most people don't expect you to do anything. But the impact this has for the Axis is ridiculous. Like it completely breaks the game in terms of the rubber, the rubber issues that the Germany would face, meaning that they could, if they wanted to, probably go toe to toe with Allied air production for considerably longer. And the ability to get so much fuel, because Spain, of course, is a neutral party, also means that, again, Germany can have its air up for much longer than normal, when it doesn't have to worry or concern itself with fuel issues. Okay, so I can give the Germans 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 factories on fighters. Now, that's not bad. Of course, the Allies will, of course, have 100 factories or so on fighters, alone or combined at the very least. But combined with a German rubber production as well, and of course Italian rubber production, you could crack up to about 100 or so. Also, it took Germany will have to do its own rubber production in the start of 1941, because you could see when I was doing rubber production in 1941, I couldn't produce enough rubber because I was still coming out of the Civil War. So this is something that sort of pops off in 1941, but it's not good in 1939, 1940. I can see the reason why I was banned. I mean, it was even worse back when I played it. Back when you still had to have the oil resource to build tanks, because of course it meant that the Germans could just mass produce tanks and planes, as opposed to everyone else who couldn't, and there's no way to stop me doing it without declaring war on me. So it was funny. It was really pretty funny. But yeah, that's it for today, boys. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. But I think this is probably the optimum build for Spain, if you actually intend to be supporting the team and hoping the Axis win, because it just has so much game impact in terms of just relieving the pressure off German industry, not just Axis industry and Axis fuel, and it's just a troll. It's just insulting to the Allies. It's just like they think where's Germany getting all its rubber from? They see Spain that's with like 100 or 200 rubber. It'll get you banned. I think you can give it a go, but it'll get you banned. Only considerations is you got to win the Civil War. The earlier the better. If you win by 38, it's not the end of the world, but you want to win the earlier the better. Anyway, that's me done. No point watching any further. The Germans will just win because they have fuel superiority and they've got rubber superiority. But that's it for today. Thank you, boys. And you may see me on later. I want to try the Crimea mod for Victoria 2. But I'll see you all later, and have a good one. Adieu.